Okay, so today we're going to talk about historical context, which is very, very important in Of Mice and Men. We need to understand what was going on in history at this point to be able to understand why the characters act the way that they do. So on your paper, I want you to please write down this definition for historical context: the setting for a particular text with political, social, cultural, and economic aspects. So when we talk about this, when we think about politics, right, this one is kind of easy. Politics we think about as kind of laws, even kind of like the leaders of the era. So when you think about any time since the United States has been in existence, we think about the laws that existed at that time, as well as maybe the president or the governors or things like that. When we think about social things, we think about ways that people communicate. So for example, are they using social media in 2020? Are they writing a letter? Are they sending a telegraph? We're also thinking about societal issues at the time. So if we're thinking about today, we're thinking about things like the Black Lives Matter movement. If we're thinking about in the 1950s, we're thinking about the civil rights movement or the women's rights movement, that kind of thing. Things that were important societal issues at the time. When we think about culture, we think about a lot of things. When you studied, I know you've studied culture a lot in social studies in the past, so you should be able to define culture as things like religion, food, language, the way that people dress even, people's beliefs and stereotypes in a certain area. That all ties into culture, right? So if we're thinking about the culture of this area and we kind of go through this list, religion, predominantly Christian. Things that are unique for food in this area would be things like chicken and waffles or chicken pot pie, scrapple, if you've ever heard of that, very Pennsylvania Dutch food. The way that people dress, we would think of things that very casual, like if we think about you teenagers, very much like hoodies and joggers. We think about people's beliefs and stereotypes. Okay, we definitely hold those. Sometimes they're different based on our family units. The last element here is economic. Anytime you hear something about economy, it has to do with money. So if we're pulling our example of modern context right from the beginning, maybe I'm going to say something like TikTok or Snapchat. I'm going to do Snapchat because I'm a little more familiar with that one. So for my explanation, I'm always going to choose one of these. I'm going to say political, social, cultural, or economic. This is definitely social in the way that I'm going to use it. Okay? And then I'm going to draw myself a little visual to represent whatever I'm talking about. So I'm going to do like the app icon here, kind of-ish. Okay, our little ghost guy. And I know it's changed a little bit, but that's what I got. So that's an example of modern day context. If we talk about From Of Mice and Men, I'm going to give you the first example from chapter 1. What I actually want you to do is I want you to go through chapter 1 and 2, and I want you to find me 2 examples of things that would fit. So I'm pulling a direct quote here. George unslung his bindle and dropped it gently on the bank. Okay, so you can see I cited this as page 3. I did a direct quote from the book. And why I pulled this quote is because I wanted to focus on this word bindle. Bindle shows us that this is economic. And the reason why is, here's my visual that will help you. If you've ever seen like a homeless person or the stereotypical image of a hobo, and they've got this long stick with a bundle tied on the end, that's what a bindle is, right? So if you think about George having every single thing that he owns, either in his pockets or in his bindle, that's evidence of the economic issues of the era. And we know that this was during the Great Depression. Okay? So your task is to go through and to find other things in chapter 1 that are going to help you identify elements of economic, social, political, or cultural evidence. So here's some tips. Where can you find evidence of how they dress, how they travel, where they stay, how much they earn? Okay, what they do for fun, this would be cultural. So that's your goal. When you come back, you're going to have 4 examples. And that's historical context.